On this video, we're going to be learning how to use midpoint. So we're going to find a midpoint on just a basic number line, and then we're also going to find a midpoint when we are using a coordinate grid and we have diagonals. So we actually have to use the midpoint formula on that one. So for this one, it says find the location of Q, the midpoint of PR. So it wants to know what is right in the middle in between P and R. And sometimes we can kind of visually see that pretty quickly. But remember, the location of P is not -9 and location of R is 1. So to find the distance between P and R, we can count from -9 to 1 on the number line. So I can just count on here. And if I do this a little quicker, so I just made that go a little faster, we have 10 spaces there, right? So the Q, which is our midpoint, is going to be halfway between P and R. So Q is located 10 divided by 2, because 10 is the whole thing, which is 5 units from both P and Q. So then I can just count backwards and go, well, it's either 5 units this way or 5 units this way. Either way, I'm going to land on -4 there. So it has to be -4. Now I could kind of visually see that too, and sometimes they're much closer together, so it's very, very easy to see this on a number line, where you can immediately go, yep, that's the middle, that's the midpoint. But this is a little easier if you know how to calculate it, if you have points that are more spread out and it's not as easy to see. All right, so let's look at midpoint of a line segment in a plane. So now they want us to find the midpoint M of a line segment joining the points P and Q. So they give us the coordinates here, and here's the line, so they show us PQ, and they want, what's the midpoint here? What's that point right in the middle? So we have another formula. The midpoint of a segment joining the points P and Q in the plane, and I put the points back here again so you can see them. And again, I have labels. I did the same thing on the distance formula. It's x1, y1, whoop, why is that still going? X2, y2. And this simply is a way of labeling. So I have point 1. Here's my x coordinate from point 1, my y coordinate from point 1. Here's my point 2, my second point, and here's my x coordinate from point 2 and my y coordinate from point 2. Again, remember, those labels are important because they always go x, y. That's how we do an ordered pair. It means that they're in order from x to y, which refers to our x and y axis. So if I just say x, y, x, y, x, y, and I have more than one point, I have no way to reference which x or which y I'm talking about. But if I give it that little denotion, this is point 1 and this is point 2, now I can say I'm talking about x1, I'm talking about x2. I'm giving myself a way of referencing those specific points. Okay, so now here's the midpoint formula. When we're in a coordinate grid and if it's a diagonal. If it's straight across, if it's horizontal or vertical, you can actually use the previous method where you just count and divide by 2 and move that many spaces. But if it's diagonal, we need to add the x coordinates together and divide by 2, and we need to add the y coordinates together and divide by 2. Okay, so here we're going to have, and I put the 2's underneath because automatically you're dividing by 2. So now I need to go through, here's x1, so I have -1. Here's x2, so I have -2. And then I'm going to go y1 for this one, so -8 again. And then y2, so -4. So here I have it filled in. I just went through and grabbed all my pieces. Now I'm going to go through and simplify. So -8 plus -2. And I get -10. They're both negative, so I add and keep the negative. -8 plus -4. Again, they're both negative, so I'm going to add and keep the negative. So -12. And then -10 divided by 2 is -5. -12 divided by 2 is -6. So then I like to do this piece on here. I want to make sure that it makes sense. And this one's not as easy to see because they don't give me the lines on here. But if this is 2, then I'm going to say this is about 5. And then if I went down, it's not the easiest estimation to do because they don't give you the lines. But it does seem to make sense. About 5, maybe about 6, because a little bit more and that would be 8. So that does make sense. It looks like it will be generally in about the right area. The main thing you want to do with this one, especially since they don't give me lines to really graph it, is just make sure that it makes sense. If this said +5 and +6, well, that'd be over here and over here. It'd be in the wrong area. So you want to make sure it generally makes sense. So somewhere, about here, then going down here, that definitely makes sense. It's in the right area. Okay, so just, be aware of that. This is how you find midpoint. on a coordinate grid. I hope that helped, and I will see you on the next video.